Let me tell you a story, not about a single boy, but about a pattern, a quiet truth hidden in millions of eldest sons around the world. A truth no one teaches them, yet they live it every single day. It starts early. Before he even knows what responsibility means, the world begins placing invisible weights on his shoulders. Be strong, set an example, don't cry. Your siblings look up to you. He doesn't choose these rules, they choose him. And little by little, the oldest son becomes something he never agreed to be: a guardian, a protector, a substitute parent, a bridge between childhood and adulthood before he even reaches the middle. People see him as capable, so they forget he's still young. People see him as responsible, so they stop checking if he's overwhelmed. People see him as tough, so they miss the softness he hides inside. Psychologists call this parentification, a child stepping into the emotional or practical roles of a parent, but he doesn't know that word. He only knows one thing: if I don't hold everything together, who will? This is where the psychology begins, because the eldest son learns early that his value is measured by how useful he is. And when you grow up equating love with responsibility, you become an adult who apologizes for resting, who feels guilty for saying no, who believes failure is unforgivable. His childhood becomes a training ground for survival. He learns to fix before he feels. He learns to protect before he processes. He learns to give before he ever receives. And people call him mature for his age, not realizing that maturity built from pressure isn't growth, it's self-defense. But here's the hidden part no one talks about. The eldest son is often the most misunderstood child in the family. He is seen as the strong one, so no one asks if he's tired. He is seen as the stable one, so no one checks if he's breaking. He is seen as the independent one, so no one notices that he's lonely. Because when you teach a boy that love equals responsibility, he becomes a man who doesn't know how to ask for help. He becomes someone who suppresses emotions he was never allowed to show. He becomes someone who takes care of others even when he is falling apart, not because he wants to, but because he has been conditioned to believe that the world will collapse if he stops holding it. There's a certain sadness eldest sons carry, a quiet grief for the childhood they never fully lived. While other kids could fail, experiment, explore, and break things, he had to be careful. He had to be predictable. He had to be the good one. He doesn't resent his siblings. In fact, he loves them fiercely, but love, for him, has always felt like duty. He learns to scan the room for danger. He learns to anticipate needs before they're spoken. He becomes the emotional shock absorber of the family. And yet, no one teaches him how to absorb his own pain. So he becomes a man who feels responsible for everyone's happiness but his own. Psychology calls this hyper-independence, a coping mechanism built from years of being the reliable one. It's the kind of independence that looks strong on the outside but is deeply rooted in fear, the fear of being a burden, the fear of disappointing someone, the fear of being seen as weak, and maybe the hardest truth: the eldest son often doesn't know who he is outside the expectations placed on him, because his identity was built around being needed. So when no one needs him, he feels lost. There's something else too, something deeper. Eldest sons carry a unique form of guilt, a guilt that whispers, "You should have done more. You should have protected them better. You should have been stronger," even when it was never his job, even when he was just a child trying to survive like everyone else. This guilt follows him into adulthood. He becomes the friend who hears everyone's problems but shares none of his own. He becomes the partner who takes on too much, trying to be the emotional anchor. He becomes the coworker who never complains, even when overloaded. He becomes a son who never asks his parents for anything because he doesn't want to add to their stress. All of this creates a strange internal contradiction. He is tired, but he cannot rest. He is overwhelmed, but he keeps going. He is hurting, but he stays silent. Because for the eldest son, stopping feels like failing, and failing feels like letting everyone down. But here's the part that cuts the deepest. No one ever teaches the eldest son that he deserves softness too, that he deserves comfort, rest, understanding, patience, that his worth is not tied to what he provides. Nobody tells him that he can cry without breaking anyone's trust, that he can ask for help without losing respect, that he can rest without disappointing the world. And because he never hears these things, he grows up believing the lie that emotions make him weak. But the truth? The eldest son is not weak. He is tired. Tired from carrying a lifetime of unspoken expectations. Tired from being the emotional backbone of a family. Tired from being the silent warrior who keeps everyone steady. There's a certain beauty in him, though, a quiet, overlooked beauty. He becomes the man who loves deeply, even if he struggles to show it. He becomes the protector who notices what others overlook. He becomes the steady presence people rely on. He becomes the one who stays calm in chaos, not because he isn't scared, but because fear is something he learned to swallow long ago. But here is the shift, the healing part. There comes a moment in every eldest son's life where he realizes something he was never allowed to consider. He is allowed to be human. He is allowed to break. He is allowed to feel. He is allowed to make mistakes. He is allowed to rest. He is allowed to choose himself. And that realization doesn't happen in a single moment. It happens slowly. Like the first deep breath after years of holding it in, he begins to understand that the world will not fall apart if he stops carrying everything alone. He begins to understand that responsibility is not the same as identity, that strength is not the absence of vulnerability, that love is not measured by sacrifice alone. He begins to understand that being the eldest son is just a role, not a sentence. And slowly he starts reclaiming the parts of himself he buried to survive. His softness, his childhood innocence, his joy, his needs, his voice. He learns that the people who truly love him don't love him for what he provides. They love him for who he is. And maybe for the first time in his life, he allows himself to believe that. So, if you're an eldest son listening to this, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not responsible for healing everyone. You are not responsible for holding everything together. You are not responsible for being strong all the time. You deserve rest. You deserve support. You deserve to be cared for too. Your existence is not a role. Your worth is not a burden. Your heart is allowed to be soft without the world falling apart. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest act of strength is allowing yourself to finally put the weight down,